The halls of the Red Keep echoed with whispers of betrayal and danger. Lord Ned Stark, Warden of the North, had spent his life believing in honor, but King's Landing was not a place for honorable men. He had trusted Peter Baelish, known as Littlefinger, but something inside him felt wrong. A man who smiled too much, spoke too sweetly, and played too many sides could never be trusted. Ned stood by the window of his chambers, looking at the city below. He had just sent a letter to Stannis Baratheon, informing him of the truth, that Joffrey was not Robert's true son. But as he watched the moonlight shine over the rooftops, a thought troubled him. He had put too much trust in the wrong people. Littlefinger had promised his support, had assured him that the City Watch would stand with him. But what if it was all a lie? He turned to his captain of the guard, Jory Castle. "Bring me Lord Baelish. Tell him I need to speak with him in private. And Jory, make sure no one sees you." Jory, a loyal and strong warrior, nodded and left without a word. Minutes later, the door opened again. Peter Baelish entered, his signature, smirk on his lips. "Lord Stark, you have summoned me. I hope it is not about another lecture on honor." Ned didn't return the smile. "I have made a mistake, Littlefinger, a grave mistake." Petter raised an eyebrow, feigning concern. "Oh, and what mistake is that?" Ned stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Trusting you." For the first time, the smirk on Littlefinger's face faltered, but only for a second. He laughed lightly. "My lord, I am hurt. After everything, you doubt my loyalty?" Ned didn't answer with words. Instead, he drew his sword. Ice, the great Valyrian steel blade of House Stark, glimmered in the candlelight. Littlefinger's eyes flickered to the door, his mind racing. He was a master of manipulation, not a warrior. If Ned had already made up his mind, there was no talking his way out of this. "My lord, think carefully," Petter said, his voice softer now, controlled. "If you kill me, what happens next? Who controls the City Watch? Who whispers in the Queen's ear? I am the reason you are still alive, and I can still be useful to you." Ned shook his head. "Your usefulness is poison. Every time you speak, I hear another lie. You betrayed Jon Arryn, and I have no doubt you plan to betray me too." Baelish swallowed, his smirk completely gone now. He had played the game well for so long, but he had underestimated the Northman's instinct. He glanced around the room, looking for an escape, but Jory and 2 Stark guards blocked the door. "Ned," Peter whispered, a last attempt at desperation. "Please." Ned Stark had always been a man of mercy. He had given his enemies a chance to prove themselves, but tonight he did not hesitate. With one swift motion, he drove ice through Littlefinger's chest. The blade slid easily through flesh and bone, and Petter Baelish gasped, his eyes wide with shock. Blood spilled onto the stone floor, pooling beneath his boots. For the first time in his life, Littlefinger had miscalculated, and it had cost him everything. Ned pulled the sword free and stepped back as Baelish crumpled to the floor, his body twitching for only a moment before going still. The room was silent, except for the flickering of the torches. Jory spoke first. "What now, my lord?" Ned wiped the blood from his sword with a cloth, his face set in stone. "Now we prepare for war." He had taken the first step in saving his family and the realm, but the real battle was only beginning. The morning sun cast long shadows over King's Landing as Ned Stark stood by his window, watching the city awaken. The people moved about their daily lives, unaware that one of the most cunning players in the game had been removed from the board. Peter Baelish was dead, but Ned knew this was only the beginning. Jory Castle entered the chamber, closing the door behind him. "My lord, the body has been taken care of. No one saw anything. As far as anyone knows, Littlefinger vanished in the night." Ned nodded. It was better this way. If word spread that he had killed Littlefinger, it would raise too many questions. Cersei would grow suspicious, and suspicion led to violence. For now, secrecy was their greatest weapon. "We don't have much time," Ned said. "The Lannisters will make their move soon. We need to act before they do." Jory hesitated for a moment. "My lord, with respect, what is our next step? We no longer have Littlefinger to turn the city watch. Against the Lannisters, without their support, we're outnumbered in King's Landing." Ned knew his captain was right. Petter Baelish had promised him the loyalty of the Gold Cloaks, but that had been a lie. If Ned had waited even a day longer, the city watch would have turned on him, just as they had in the original timeline. Killing Littlefinger had removed a snake from the pit, but it had also removed a potential asset. "We don't need the city watch," Ned finally said. "We need allies." His eyes darkened as he thought of the letter he had sent to Dragonstone. If Stannis Baratheon responded quickly, they might have a chance to take control of the throne before the Lannisters fully realized what was happening. But Stannis was not a man of quick action. He was careful, slow, and stubborn. Ned needed more than just Stannis. "Renly Baratheon," he muttered. Jory frowned. "The king's brother? He fled the city after Robert's death." "Yes, but he has supporters. The Tyrells favor him. If we can reach him before the Lannisters do, we might convince him to march on King's Landing." Jory hesitated again. "Lord Stark, Renly does not have the best claim to the throne. Shouldn't we be backing Stannis?" Ned sighed. "Stannis is the rightful heir, but he lacks support. Renly has the men and resources to fight this war." He turned to Jory, his expression grim. "Honor means little if we do not live to see justice done." Jory nodded slowly. "What would you have me do?" "Gather our most trusted men," Ned ordered. "I want someone sent to Renly immediately. If he is willing to help, we will need to act fast. Also, send word to Lord Commander Mormont at the Wall. My son is there, and I need him to know what is happening." Jory bowed and left to carry out his orders. Ned took a deep breath and turned to the table, where a map of Westeros lay before him. He traced his fingers over the north, thinking of his daughters. Sansa was still a prisoner in the Red Keep, and Arya was missing somewhere in the city. He had to get them out before the bloodshed began. Just as he was lost in thought, the door swung open, and a familiar face entered. Varys, the Spider. "My lord," Varys said, his expression unreadable. "I must say, you have been busy." Ned's hand instinctively moved to the hilt of his sword. "I don't know what you mean." Varys smiled thinly. "Oh, but you do. Petter Baelish has not been seen since last night. He was a man who had eyes everywhere, yet now he is simply gone. How curious." Ned did not respond. He would not play games with this man. Varys stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I am not your enemy, Lord Stark. In fact, I may be the only friend you have left in this wretched city." Ned's jaw tightened. "If that were true, you'd help me get my daughters out of here." Varys studied him for a moment before nodding. "That can be arranged, but know this, my lord. Cersei Lannister is already making her move. She has no doubt that you will act against her, and with Littlefinger gone, she will grow desperate." Ned exhaled slowly. "Then we must act faster." Varys gave a small smile. "Indeed." As he left the room, Ned knew one thing for certain. King's Landing was about to erupt into chaos, and there was no turning back. You said the sun had barely begun its descent when the Red Keep's halls buzzed with unseen tension. News of Littlefinger's sudden disappearance had started to spread. Servants whispered in corners, and the nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Cersei Lannister, however, remained eerily quiet. Ned knew that meant trouble. He stood in his chambers, gripping a letter he had just finished. It was addressed to Renly Baratheon, urging him to return to King's Landing before the Lannisters could consolidate their power. With Stannis unlikely to act quickly, Renly was the best chance at immediate action. If he could be convinced to march on the capital, they had a real shot at taking control before the inevitable bloodshed. A knock at the door made Ned turn. Jory Cassell entered, his expression troubled. "My lord, there's something you should see." Ned followed him through the halls, his mind racing. As they stepped outside, his breath caught in his throat. There, hanging from the walls of the Red Keep, was the body of one of his men, Captain Heward. His throat had been slit, and pinned to his chest was a parchment with a single word written. In crimson ink, "Traitor." Ned's blood ran cold. This was Cersei's message. She knew he was moving against her. "The Queen moves faster than we expected," Jory muttered grimly. "She's showing you what happens to those who cross her." Ned clenched his fists. His honor told him to march into the throne room and confront Cersei directly. But he had learned from Robert's mistakes. Cersei was ruthless, and if she was already acting so boldly, she likely had more moves planned. "We can't wait any longer," Ned said, his voice firm. "Send more riders to Renly, and get a message to Robb in Winterfell. Tell him to prepare the bannermen." Jory hesitated. "Are you sure, my lord? This will mean war." Ned looked at the lifeless body of his man, and then toward the castle, where his daughters were still trapped. War was already here. Before he could say more, another figure approached. Varys, moving with his usual quiet grace. His face was unreadable, but his tone was urgent. "My lord, I warned you that the Queen would act quickly," Varys said. "She has already begun securing alliances. The City Watch is not yet fully in her grasp, but the gold is flowing, and soon they will be hers." Ned's jaw tightened. "Then we must act before that happens." Varys nodded. "I can help you smuggle your daughters out of the city, but you must be careful. Cersei is watching everything." Ned turned to Jory. "Take our fastest riders. Get word to Robb and Renly. We may not have much time left." As Jory left, Varys leaned in slightly. "You are making enemies quickly, Lord Stark. If you are to win this, you must be willing to play the game as they do." Ned exhaled sharply. "I am no schemer, Varys." The spider smiled faintly. "Then let us hope that honor alone is enough to keep you alive." As Varys disappeared into the shadows, Ned looked once more at the bloodied message on his man's chest. Cersei had made her move. Now it was his turn. The halls of the Red Keep felt colder now. Every shadow stretched longer. Every whisper seemed to carry hidden meaning. Ned Stark had been in King's Landing for only a few weeks, yet it felt like years. He had always despised this city, but now he saw it for what it truly was, a pit of snakes, each one waiting for the right moment to strike. His daughters were still in the lion's den. Sansa, unaware of the danger around her, was trapped in her fantasy of becoming Joffrey's queen. Arya was missing somewhere in the city, but Ned had faith in her. She was a Stark through and through. She would survive. But survival wasn't enough. He had to get them out. A soft knock at his door made him turn sharply. His hand went to his sword, but the voice outside was calm. "My lord, it is Varys." Ned opened the door, allowing the spider to step inside. Varys moved with his usual grace, his hands folded before him, his expression unreadable. "I have done as you asked, Lord Stark," Varys said. "I have made arrangements to get your daughters out of the city, but it will not be easy." "Tell me," Ned said. Varys stepped closer. "Sansa is heavily guarded. The Queen believes she is still valuable. Arya, however, is already slipping through the cracks. I've arranged for a smuggler to take them both away, but there is a complication." Ned narrowed his eyes. "What kind of complication?" Varys sighed. "The Queen has doubled her watch on the city gates. She is preparing for something. I fear she knows you are planning to act." Ned's mind raced. Cersei was always one step ahead. If she suspected his moves, she would not hesitate to use his daughters against him. "Then we must move faster," Ned said. "Tonight, if possible." Varys nodded slowly. I will do what I can. But my lord, there is something else. Something you should know. Ned clenched his jaw. What now? Varys lowered his voice. The Lannisters have made contact with Lord Tywin. He is already marching toward the city. The words hit Ned like a punch to the gut. Tywin Lannister, the true power behind the throne. If he was bringing his army to King's Landing, then war was no longer a possibility. It was a certainty. Ned exhaled sharply. How long do we have? Days at most, Varys replied. He moves quickly when provoked. If you do not act before he arrives, your chances of success will vanish. Ned rubbed his temples. Robb was still in Winterfell, but if he received the message in time, he would march south. Renly was still a question mark. Would he answer the call? Would he bring the Tyrells with him? There were too many unknowns. But one thing was clear. He had to make his move before Tywin arrived. Then we have no choice, Ned said. Tomorrow we take control of the throne. Varys raised an eyebrow. A bold statement, my lord. Do you have the men? Ned's gaze hardened. I will, by morning. The spider studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. Then may the gods be with you, Lord Stark. You will need them. As Varys slipped out of the room, Ned turned back to the table where the map of Westeros lay spread out. His hand hovered over King's Landing, then moved north to Winterfell. War was coming, and this time he would not be caught unprepared. Chaka. Night air in King's Landing was thick with tension. Ned Stark stood by the window of his chambers, staring out at the city below. Fires burned in the distance, their glow flickering against the dark sky. He could hear the faint sound of armored boots marching through the streets. The city watch. On patrol. Cersei was tightening her grip. Jory Cassell entered quietly, his face grim. The men are ready, my lord. We have gathered as many loyal swords as we could find. Ned turned to face him. How many? Jory hesitated. Not enough to take the city outright, but if we strike first, we might be able to seize control before the Lannisters can react. Ned exhaled. This was not how he had wanted things to unfold, but war left little room for honor. He had to act now, or he would lose everything. Has there been word from Renly? Ned asked. Jory shook his head. Not yet. If he marches, we do not know when. Ned's jaw tightened. He had sent riders to Renly, urging him to return and stake his claim before Stannis could act. But time was running out. If Renly did not arrive soon, they would be facing the Lannisters alone. Varys has made arrangements for Sansa and Arya, Ned said. If things go badly, they must get out of the city. Jory nodded. And what of the city watch? Do we have their loyalty? Ned hesitated. That was the greatest uncertainty. Without Littlefinger, he had no way of ensuring their allegiance. His only hope was that Janos Slynt, the commander of the Gold Cloaks, would recognize the greater threat, the Lannisters. But that was a gamble. Before he could respond, the door opened again. A young messenger, breathless and pale, stepped inside. "My lord," the boy stammered, "Lord Renly, he has left the city." Ned's heart sank. "Left?" The boy nodded. "He fled, in the night with his men. No one knows where he's gone." A wave of frustration surged through Ned. Renly had abandoned them. Whatever chance they had of an easy victory was gone. Jory's face darkened. "Then it's just us." Ned nodded slowly. "Then we do what we must." He turned back to the table, where his sword, ice, lay waiting, his father's blade. A weapon meant for justice, not politics. But politics had already failed him. "Jory, gather the men. We move at dawn." Jory bowed and left without another word. Ned gripped the hilt of ice and closed his eyes for a moment. Somewhere in the castle, his daughters were sleeping, unaware of the storm that was about to break. Tomorrow he would make his stand, for his family, for the North, for the realm, no matter the cost. The first light of dawn cast a pale glow over the Red Keep. Ned Stark stood in his chambers, fully armored, ice strapped to his back. His men were ready. There would be no turning back now. Jory Castle entered, his face tense. "The men are in position, my lord, but the city watch. Something isn't right." Ned frowned. "What do you mean?" Jory hesitated. "They've gathered at the main gate, more than usual. It's as if they're preparing for something." Ned's grip on his sword tightened. He had counted on Janos Slynt's neutrality, maybe even his support. But if the City Watch was already mobilizing, then something had changed. Before he could speak, the door swung open and a Lannister guard stepped in. "Lord Stark, the Queen requests your presence in the throne room." Ned met Jory's gaze. Silent understanding passed between them. "This is it," Ned muttered. Jory nodded. "We'll be right behind you." Ned turned back to the guard. "Lead the way." As they walked through the halls of the Red Keep, Ned's mind raced. Cersei had made her move. The question was, how much did she already know? The throne. Room doors loomed ahead. The moment they opened, Ned saw them. The Lannisters stood in force. Cersei, dressed in gold, sat beside Joffrey, who smirked from atop the Iron Throne. Jaime Lannister stood at her side, hand resting on his sword hilt. But what made Ned's blood run cold was the City Watch. Janos Slynt stood at attention, his men flanking the room. They had already chosen their side. Ned took a slow breath, stepping forward. "Your Grace," he said, addressing Joffrey. "You have called for me." Cersei smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Lord Stark, you have been busy these past few nights." Ned held her gaze. "As have you, it seems." Joffrey's voice cut through the room. "I am your king now, Stark. You will kneel before me." Ned didn't move. "You are no king, boy." The room fell into silence. Jaime's hand tightened on his sword. Slynt shifted slightly. Cersei's smile faded. Joffrey's face twisted in anger. "Arrest him." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the City Watch moved, but not toward Ned. They turned on the Lannister guards. Swords clashed. Chaos erupted. Jory and the Stark men surged into the room, cutting through the confusion. Ned drew ice, blocking an attack from a Lannister knight. He parried, slashing through his opponent's armor with a single stroke. Jaime Lannister rushed forward, but Jory intercepted him, their blades ringing through the chamber. Cersei screamed for order, but it was too late. Janos Slynt had betrayed her. The City Watch turned on the Lannisters, cutting them down. Ned didn't question it. He pressed forward, his eyes on Joffrey. The boy king scrambled back, fear in his eyes. "Mother!" Cersei grabbed him, pulling him toward the back entrance. Ned tried to follow, but more guards blocked his path. He cut them down, his men at his side. By the time he reached the door, Cersei and Joffrey were gone. Jory approached, blood on his face. "They're running, my lord." Ned looked around. The throne room was littered with bodies. The battle was over, for... "Now," he turned to Slynt. "Why did you help us?" Slynt wiped blood from his cheek. "Littlefinger made promises, but he's dead now. The Lannisters' gold can only buy so much." Ned nodded slowly. "Then we must move quickly. Find Sansa and Arya. Secure the castle. The war is not over yet." Jory gave the order, and the men moved. Ned turned toward the Iron Throne. It loomed above him, dark and sharp, like a beast waiting to be tamed. This was only the beginning. The Red Keep was drenched in blood. Bodies of Lannister guards and knights lay scattered across the throne room, their golden armor smeared in crimson. The City Watch, now firmly under Ned Stark's command, moved swiftly to secure the castle. The battle had been won, but the war had just begun. Jory Castle returned, breathing heavily. "We've taken control of the main gates and the barracks. The remaining Lannister men have surrendered or fled, but Cersei and Joffrey are gone. They escaped through the secret tunnels beneath the keep. Ned clenched his jaw. He had known Cersei would not go down without a fight, but her escape meant trouble. Janos Slynt approached, wiping his blade clean. The city is still ours for now, but Tywin Lannister will not sit idle once he hears of this. We must be ready. Ned nodded. He turned to Jory. Have our men search every inch of the city. We need to find my daughters before the Lannisters do. Jory hesitated. My lord, we found Sansa. Ned's breath caught. Where is she? Jory shifted uncomfortably. She was in her chambers, with Sir Meryn Trant guarding her. He resisted. Ned's stomach twisted. Is she safe? Jory nodded. A little shaken, but unharmed. Ned let out a slow breath. And Arya? Jory's face darkened. No sign of her yet. Varys is searching the city. Ned's hands tightened into fists. He had to find Arya before the Lannisters did. Take me to Sansa, Ned ordered. They moved quickly through the halls, past the fallen bodies of Lannister guards. The castle was eerily quiet now, the echoes of battle fading into stillness. When they reached Sansa's chambers, she was sitting on the bed, pale and shaken. Father, she cried, running to him. Ned held her tightly, relief washing over him. You're safe now, sweet girl, he murmured. Tears filled her eyes. The Queen, she told me you were a traitor, that Joffrey would be a great king and that I should stand by him. Her voice cracked. Was she lying? Ned knelt before her, looking into her eyes. You must understand, Sansa. The Lannisters care only about power. Joffrey is not the rightful king. He is dangerous. Sansa bit her lip, her face full of confusion. Then, what happens now? Ned rose to his feet. Now we prepare for war. Before he could say more, Jory returned, his face grim. My lord, we have a problem. Ned turned sharply. What is it? Jory swallowed hard. The Lannisters are gathering in the city. Some of their bannermen are still here, and they've started rallying their men. The streets are becoming dangerous, Ned cursed under his breath. The battle for the throne room had been only the first fight. If the Lannisters were regrouping, it meant open war in the streets of King's Landing. He turned to Slynt. We must secure the city before they can organize. Slynt nodded. Agreed. If we strike fast, we can crush any resistance before it spreads. Ned looked back at Sansa. You and Arya must leave the city at once. Sansa's eyes widened. But no arguments, Ned said firmly. Jory, you will escort her out of the city. Varys will find Arya. Once you have both of them, take them north. Jory hesitated. And what of you, my lord? Ned's gaze hardened. I stay here. The throne is not secure yet. He turned back toward the Iron Throne, where Joffrey had sat only hours ago. This was far from over. The lion still had claws. The streets of King's Landing were boiling with tension. The news had spread like wildfire. Lord Ned Stark had seized control of the Red Keep. The Lannisters were retreating, and the Iron Throne now stood empty. But the battle was far from over. Cersei had escaped with Joffrey, and Tywin Lannister would soon come marching with his armies. Ned stood in the throne room, staring at the blood-stained floor. The bodies had been cleared, but the echoes of battle still lingered in the air. His men had secured the castle, but the city itself was another matter. Lannister loyalists still roamed the streets, rallying what forces they could find. Without swift action, chaos would consume King's Landing. Janos Slynt approached, his face tight with concern. My lord, we have locked down the city gates. No one enters or leaves without our command, but there are reports of Lannister men gathering near the Flea Bottom district. We should crush them before they grow stronger. Ned nodded. Do it. No mercy for those who take up arms against us. Slynt smirked and bowed. As you command, Lord Stark. As Slynt left, Jory Cassel entered, leading a cloaked figure into the room. Varys. My lord, the spider said smoothly, the city is restless. There are whispers that the Queen still has allies in the capital, waiting for the right moment to strike. You must act carefully. Ned's jaw tightened. Do you know where she is? Varys sighed. Not yet, but I have my little birds searching every shadow. Cersei is not one to run without a plan. Ned nodded. And Arya? Varys hesitated. She has not been found, but my informants tell me she was last seen near the docks. If she is clever, and I believe she is, she may try to flee the city on her own. A sharp pang of worry hit Ned's chest. Arya was strong, but she was still just a child. The streets of King's Landing were dangerous, even more so now. Find her, Ned ordered. She and Sansa must leave before the real war begins. Varys inclined his head. As you wish, my lord. As Varys left, Jory stepped forward. And what of Stannis? He is the rightful heir. Should we send another message? Ned exhaled. Stannis had not yet responded to his call, but there was no doubt that he knew of the events unfolding. If he was coming, he would bring war. If he chose to wait, then Ned was truly alone. Send another rider, Ned decided. If Stannis marches, we need to know, Jory nodded. And Renly? Ned's expression darkened. Renly had fled. He had abandoned the city when they needed him most. He was no longer an option. We do not rely on cowards, Ned said. We stand alone if we must. Jory bowed and left, leaving Ned alone in the great hall. He turned toward the Iron Throne, its jagged steel spikes glinting in the dim torchlight. The seat of power that had caused so much bloodshed. He had never wanted it. He had only wanted to serve justice, to do what was right. But the game had changed. If the only way to protect his family and the realm was to take control himself, then so be it. The throne room was silent, save for the faint crackling of torches lining the walls. Ned Stark stood before the Iron Throne, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had spent his life avoiding politics, despising the corruption of King's Landing, yet here he was, at the center of it all. Jory Cassill returned, his expression tense. My lord, the city is growing restless. The people are afraid. They do not know who rules. Ned turned away from the throne. They will know soon enough, Jory hesitated. And what should we tell them? Ned took a deep breath. That King Robert is dead, that Joffrey Baratheon is not the rightful heir, and that justice will be served. Jory nodded, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. And the small council? The lords of Westeros will expect someone to take the throne. Ned's jaw tightened. He had no desire to sit upon the Iron Throne, but the realm needed leadership. Without it, chaos would consume them. We will name Stannis Baratheon as the rightful king, Ned said firmly. Send a message to every great house in Westeros. They must know the truth. Jory bowed. As you command. As Jory left, another figure stepped into the room, Varys moving with his usual quiet grace. My lord, the spider said, you have won a battle, but the war is only beginning. Ned met his gaze. Where is Cersei? Varys sighed. Gone. She and Joffrey have vanished into the night. My little birds tell me they may be heading toward Casterly Rock. Ned cursed under his breath. If Cersei reached Tywin, he would bring the full force of the Lannister army upon them. Then we must prepare, Ned said. If Tywin marches, we must be ready. Varys gave a small smile. And will you sit upon the throne, Lord Stark? Ned turned back to the Iron Throne. Its sharp, jagged edges seemed to mock him. He had no love for this seat of power, but if he did not take control, someone worse would. For now, he said, until Stannis arrives. Varys tilted his head. And if Stannis does not come? Ned didn't answer, because deep down, he already knew the truth. Stannis Baratheon was a hard man, a man of principle, of unshakable determination. But he was not loved. The lords of Westeros would not rally behind him as easily as they had behind Robert. If Stannis delayed or faltered, others would step in, Renly perhaps, or worse, another opportunist looking to seize power. If Ned Stark wanted to ensure that justice was done, he might have to do it himself. Before he could dwell on the thought, Jory returned, his face pale. "My lord, riders have been spotted. Outside the city, Lannister banners. Ned's blood ran cold." "How many?" "Not an army," Jory said. "A small group carrying a white flag, a messenger." "Bring them in," Ned commanded. Minutes later, the throne room doors swung open. A lone rider entered, clad in Lannister red and gold. He removed his helmet, revealing a face that made Ned's stomach tighten. Tyrion Lannister. The imp strode forward. With confidence, though his mismatched eyes were sharp with calculation. He stopped before Ned and inclined his head. "Lord Stark," he said smoothly, "you and I have much to discuss." Ned narrowed his eyes. "If you've come to demand my surrender, you're wasting your time," Tyrion chuckled. "Oh, nothing so dramatic. I've come to negotiate." Ned crossed his arms. "Negotiate what?" Tyrion smiled thinly. "The lives of your daughters." A cold silence filled the room. Ned's fists clenched at his sides. "What have you done?" Tyrion raised a hand. "Nothing, not yet, but my dear sister is not so patient. If you want them to live, you will listen to what I have to say." Ned's heart pounded in his chest. Arya was still missing, but if Cersei had Sansa, she would use her as a weapon. He had won the throne room. But the real battle had just begun. The throne room felt smaller now, the air heavier. Ned Stark's grip on ice tightened as he stared at Tyrion Lannister. The dwarf stood calmly before him, his expression unreadable, but his words echoed in Ned's mind. "The lives of your daughters." Ned took a slow breath, steadying his anger. "If Cersei has harmed them," Tyrion raised a hand. "No threats, Lord Stark. I assure you my dear sister values Sansa too much to throw her away so soon. As for Arya, well, she seems to have vanished. Even Varys's little birds haven't found her yet." Ned's jaw clenched. Arya was still free at least. But Sansa... "What do you want, Lannister?" Ned's voice was firm. "You wouldn't have come here unless you thought you could bargain." Tyrion smirked. "Clever as ever. I bring an offer from my father, a way to stop this bloodshed before it consumes us all." Jory Cassel and Janos Slynt stood at Ned's side, watching the conversation closely. The city watch was his for now, but he knew their loyalty was fragile. If Tywin's offer was tempting enough, some of them might waver. "And what is Tywin's offer?" Ned asked, keeping his voice even. Tyrion took a step closer. "Simple. Release all Lannister men in the city. Surrender King's Landing without further bloodshed. In return, you and your household will be allowed to return to Winterfell unharmed. Sansa will be returned to you. And, most importantly," he let the words hang in the air, "you will not have to face the wrath of my father's army." Ned scoffed. "Your father will march on us regardless. Surrender or not, he will never let a Stark hold power in King's Landing." Tyrion tilted his head. "Perhaps, but he will come sooner and with greater fury if you refuse. Right now my father's armies are gathering, but they are not yet ready to strike. You still have time to avoid war." Jory shifted uneasily. "My lord, we cannot trust them." Ned nodded slightly, but kept his focus on Tyrion. "And what happens to the throne? Do you expect me to hand it over to Joffrey?" Tyrion's smirk faded. "My sister wants that, yes, but my father, he cares less about Joffrey than he does about power. If you surrender, perhaps a compromise can be reached." "A compromise?" Ned almost laughed. There was no compromise with the Lannisters, only submission or defiance. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. Your father murdered my men at the Riverlands. He sent Gregor Clegane to burn and slaughter innocents. He is no better than a common butcher with a golden lion on his chest." Tyrion exhaled. "Yes, my father is ruthless, but he is also patient. Right now you hold the capital. The longer you sit on that throne, the more enemies you will make, the more uncertain your allies will become. House Stark is strong, but it cannot stand alone against all of Westeros." Ned knew Tyrion was right about one thing. He was surrounded. Stannis had not yet answered his call. Renly had fled. The North would rally behind Robb, but how soon? And then there was Sansa. Tyrion saw the hesitation in Ned's eyes and pressed on. "My father does not need to march on the city to win. All he has to do is starve you out. The people of King's Landing are fickle, Lord Stark. Today they may cheer your name. Tomorrow, when the bread stops flowing, they will curse you." Janos Slynt stepped forward. "We still have supplies. The city will hold." Tyrion chuckled. "For how long? A few weeks? A month? By then Tywin will have the full might of House Lannister knocking at your gates. Do you truly believe you can hold King's Landing against him?" Ned didn't answer. He already knew the truth. No, he could not hold the city, not alone. Tyrion sighed and stepped back. "You are a man of honor, Lord Stark. I respect that. But honor will not keep your daughters safe. It will not feed your men. It will not stop the swords that will come. For you." A long silence filled the room. Finally, Tyrion straightened his cloak. "I will take my leave. My father expects an answer soon. Choose wisely, Lord Stark. The fate of your family depends on it." With that, he turned and walked away, the doors of the throne room swinging shut behind him. Jory looked at Ned. "My lord, we cannot surrender." Ned exhaled slowly. "No, we cannot." But he knew that if he did not act soon, the Lannisters would force his hand. The war had not yet begun in full, but it would, and when it did, there would be no mercy. The air in the Red Keep felt heavier after Tyrion's departure. His words lingered. In Ned's mind, a constant whisper of doubt. Sansa's safety, Arya's disappearance, the city's unrest, everything was slipping into dangerous uncertainty. The Lannisters had lost King's Landing, but they had not lost the war. Jory Cassell stood by his side, his face tense. "My lord, what do we do now?" Ned turned toward the long table where a map of Westeros lay spread out. His hands rested on the north, tracing the lands of his ancestors. Winterfell was safe for now, but how long before Tywin turned his gaze there? He straightened, his decision firm. "We prepare for war." Jory exhaled in relief. "Aye, my lord. I will have our men fortify. The city walls—" Ned shook his head. "We do not hold the city. We hold the throne, but that is not the same thing. The people are restless. We must give them a reason to stand with us." Jory frowned. "What do you propose?" Ned glanced toward the doors of the throne room. "Gather the lords still loyal to Robert. We must rally what strength we can before Tywin arrives." Jory nodded. "And the small council?" "The small council is shattered," Ned muttered. "Baelish is dead. Renly is gone. Pycelle is a Lannister puppet. The only man left worth speaking to is Varys." As if summoned, the spider appeared at the entrance, gliding toward them with his usual unsettling grace. "My lord, you have a way of speaking my name at the most opportune moments." Ned folded his arms. "Tyrion Lannister was just here. His father demands our surrender." Varys sighed. "I suspected as much. And I assume you refused?" Ned's expression darkened. "I will not bend the knee to murderers." Varys tilted his head. "A noble stance, but a dangerous one. You now sit on a throne built on lies and blood, my lord. If you wish to keep it, you will need more than just honor." Ned's patience was thin. "Enough riddles. If you have something to say, say it." Varys studied him for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "If you want to survive what comes next, You must secure true power. Right now, your claim to the throne is weak. You fight for Stannis, but Stannis is not here. That makes you vulnerable, Jory bristled. Are you suggesting Lord Stark take the throne for himself? Varys's expression did not change. I am suggesting that if Lord Stark wants to protect his family and the realm, he must play the game as others do. Ned shook his head. I will not claim the throne. Stannis is the rightful heir. Varys smiled faintly. And yet he is nowhere to be found. The lords of Westeros will not rally behind an absent king, but they will rally behind the man who saved the city from the Lannisters. Ned's mind raced. He had fought for justice, not power. But Varys was right. Without a king to rally behind, the realm would see only chaos. Before he could answer, the doors burst open. A young messenger, breathless and pale, stumbled into the room. My lord, riders approach the city. Ned stiffened. Whose banners? The boy swallowed hard. Baratheon, my lord. Ned's heart pounded. Stannis? The boy shook his head. No, my lord. Lord Renly Baratheon has returned, and he is not alone. Jory cursed under his breath. Renly? What does he want now? Varys folded his hands. I imagine he comes with a crown upon his head. Ned's stomach turned. Renly had fled the city days ago. Now he was returning, not as a fugitive, but as a challenger. If he had the backing of the Reach and the Tyrells, his claim would not be ignored. Jory looked to Ned. What do we do, my lord? Ned's jaw tightened. The war had already begun, and now a new king had entered the fray. The walls of King's Landing trembled with the sound of approaching hooves. From the battlements of the Red Keep, Ned Stark watched as Renly Baratheon rode at the head of his army, a sea of green banners fluttering in the morning sun. The golden rose of House Tyrell stood beside the stag of Baratheon, a clear sign that the Reach had thrown its full support behind the younger Baratheon brother. Jory Cassel stood beside Ned, his face grim. There must be 10,000 men, maybe more. They came fast. Ned narrowed his eyes. Renly had wasted no time. The Tyrells had provided him with soldiers, food, and most importantly, legitimacy. While Stannis still sat idle at Dragonstone, Renly had done what his older brother could not. He had moved. Behind them, Janos Slynt cleared his throat. If they mean to attack, we are not ready. The city watch is holding the gates, but if Renly's men charge, we won't last long. Ned turned back toward the throne room, where the Iron Throne loomed. He had seized the capital, but without a king, his control was fragile. Renly knew this. That was why he had returned. Send a rider, Ned said finally. Tell Renly I will meet with him under the banner of peace. Jory hesitated. Are you sure, my lord? He fled once already. Ned nodded. That was before he had an army behind him. This time, he will not run. This time, he wants the throne. Jory said nothing but left to carry out the order. An hour later, Ned rode through the gates of the city with a small escort. The streets were tense, people watching in silence as he passed. They had seen one ruler fall already. Now they waited to see who would claim power next. The meeting was set in a field just outside the city walls. Renly waited in a large green pavilion, seated on an ornate chair. He wore Baratheon black and gold, but the golden crown on his head was new. He was not alone. Beside him stood Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Behind them, a dozen knights of the Reach stood ready. Ned dismounted, stepping forward. Lord Renly. Renly smiled. It's King Renly now, Lord Stark. I assume you've heard the news. Ned's expression remained hard. I have heard. You call yourself king while your brother Stannis still lives. Renly leaned back in his chair. Stannis will not rule. He is too cold, too unyielding. The lords will not follow him. Ned's jaw tightened. The law is clear. Stannis is Robert's rightful heir. Renly sighed, shaking his head. Law does not win wars, Ned. Men do. And men follow a king who inspires them, not one who frightens them. Ned stepped closer. Then why are you here? You did not come to make speeches. You came to claim the throne. Renly smiled. Precisely. And that is why I am offering you a choice. Bend the knee, Ned. Swear loyalty to me, and I will make you my hand. A silence stretched between them. Jory and the Stark men tensed, waiting for Ned's response. Finally, Ned exhaled. No. Renly's smile faded. No. Ned shook his head. I will not betray Stannis. And I will not kneel to a man who abandoned the city when it needed him most. Renly's fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair. A pity. I had hoped you would see reason. Sir Loras stepped forward. Your Grace, we should not waste time. With talk, we have the men. Let us take the city now. Renly considered for a moment, then turned back to Ned. Last chance, Lord Stark. Kneel or be swept away. Ned met his gaze without flinching. Do what you must, Renly. So will I. The younger Baratheon studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Very well. I had hoped we could avoid bloodshed. He looked to Loras. Prepare the men. We march by nightfall. Ned turned without another word, mounting his horse and riding back toward the city. The battle for King's Landing was about to begin. The sky darkened as Ned Stark rode back into King's Landing, his mind heavy with the weight of what was to come. Renly had made his choice. By nightfall, the city would be under siege. If Ned had any hope of holding it, he needed to act fast. As he passed through the gates, Jory Cassell and Janos Slynt were already waiting. Their expressions were grim. What did he say? Jory asked. Ned dismounted, his face like stone. He will attack before sunrise. Janos Slynt cursed under his breath. The city watch isn't ready for this, my lord. We have men, yes, but not enough to withstand a full assault from the Tyrells and Baratheons. Ned nodded. Then we fight smart. Renly has speed, but he does not know the city like we do. We will force him into the streets, into the narrow alleys where his numbers will mean nothing. Jory's eyes flickered with concern. And what of the people, my lord? If the battle spills into the streets, the small folk will suffer. Ned exhaled sharply. I know, but if Renly takes the city, there will be bloodshed either way. He turned to Janos. Secure the gates, barricade the main roads leading to the Red Keep. We will make them fight for every inch of ground. Janos hesitated. And the throne? Who sits upon it now? Ned's jaw tightened. That was the question, wasn't it? With Robert dead, Joffrey a false king, and Stannis absent, the Iron Throne stood empty. He had taken the capital, but without a ruler, it was a throne in name only. For the first time, he considered what Varys had said. The realm needed stability. Stannis was the rightful heir, but if he would not come, no. Ned shook the thought. Away! He was not a king. Stannis will come, he said firmly. Until then, we hold the city in his name. Janos Slynt gave a small, doubtful smirk, but nodded. As you command, my lord. As the men moved to prepare for war, another figure approached, Varys, his silk robes whispering against the stone floor. My lord, he said smoothly. Word has spread. The city is afraid. Many believe that Renly will take the throne by morning. Ned turned to face him. Then they are mistaken. Varys tilted his head. Perhaps. But I must ask, Lord Stark. What happens? If you win, Ned frowned, then we hold until Stannis arrives. Varys sighed. And if he never does, Ned said nothing. The spider smiled faintly. A man who sits upon the Iron Throne, even for a day, is no longer just a warden of the North. If you wish to save the realm, you must be willing to take responsibility for it. Before Ned could respond, a horn sounded from the city walls, the signal of approaching forces. Renly had begun his march. Jory returned, his sword drawn. "They're at the gates, my lord." Ned turned, gripping ice. "Then let's show them that the north still stands." The battle for King's Landing had begun. The drums of war echoed through the streets of King's Landing. From the battlements of the Red Keep, Ned Stark watched as Renly's forces gathered at the gates, their banners rippling in the wind. The Tyrell Rose and Baratheon Stag stood side by side, their men clad in shining armor, their horses restless. Jory Castle stood beside him, his face tense. "They've formed ranks, my lord. Looks like they're preparing to storm the main gate." Ned nodded grimly. "Then we make them bleed for every step." The streets below were a maze of stone and shadow. King's Landing was not a battlefield like the open fields of the north. Here, the fight would be brutal, close-quartered, and full of unexpected dangers. Ned had ordered barricades to be set, archers placed along the rooftops and narrow alleys, to be filled with hidden spearmen. Janos Slynt approached, his expression uneasy. "My lord, the city watch is ready, but morale is low. Many men are questioning why we fight. Renly is well liked. If this drags on, some might switch sides." Ned turned to face him. "Then we end it quickly." A sudden blast of a war horn split the air. Below, the siege had begun. Renly's men surged forward, a flood of green and gold. The city gates shook under the force of their battering ram, while archers loosed arrows from the rooftops. Screams filled the air as men fell, bodies piling against the gates. Ned drew ice, his massive Valyrian steel blade gleaming in the torchlight. "To the gates!" He and his men charged down the stone steps, their boots echoing against the walls. The streets were chaos. Lannister loyalists had emerged, some fighting for Renly, others simply trying to escape the bloodshed. Ned reached the main gate just as it burst open. A flood of Baratheon and Tyrell soldiers poured in, their swords flashing. The city watch met them head-on, steel clashing against steel. Jory fought beside Ned, cutting down a knight in golden armor. "We can't hold this position for long." Ned gritted his teeth. "Fall back to the inner city, make them fight for every street." The retreat was organized but bloody. Renly's men pushed forward, their superior numbers forcing the defenders to give ground. Ned could see the Reach Knights cutting through the city watch with terrifying efficiency. Then, through the chaos, he spotted him. Renly Baratheon himself, mounted on a massive black warhorse, cutting his way toward the heart of the battle. At his side rode Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers, his blade dripping with blood. Ned knew what had to be done. "Jory, with me!" he shouted, cutting down another soldier as he pushed forward. Renly saw him and pulled his horse to a stop. Their eyes met across the battlefield. "Lord Stark!" Renly called, his voice clear over the noise of battle. "Surrender! This does not have to end in ruin." Ned pointed ice at him. "You abandoned the city once. You don't deserve to rule it." Renly's jaw tightened. "Then I will take it by force." He kicked his horse forward, charging straight at Ned. Ned braced himself, raising ice just as Renly swung his sword. Their blades met with a thunderous clang, the force of the impact nearly knocking Ned off his feet. Loras Tyrell moved to strike, but Jory intercepted him, their swords ringing as they clashed. The battlefield shrank around them. It was no longer armies fighting. It was two men, two claims, two ideals colliding. Renly pressed the attack, his blows fast and relentless, but Ned was stronger. With a powerful swing, he knocked Renly's blade aside, forcing him to stumble back. "You fight well," Renly panted, regaining his footing, "but you are fighting for a lost cause." Ned didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward and swung again. Renly barely blocked in time. But he was on the defensive now. Ned saw the opening. He raised ice for a final strike. Then a horn blasted in the distance. A new sound, a different army. Both men froze. From the eastern side of the city, new banners appeared. A sigil of a burning heart and a stag. Stannis Baratheon had arrived. The battle had just taken another turn. The battlefield had turned into chaos. The arrival of Stannis Baratheon's forces had changed everything. Renly's army, which had been on the verge of breaking through King's Landing, now found itself caught between two enemies. The sound of war horns filled the air as Stannis' men charged from the east, their banners of the flaming heart and crowned stag burning bright in the evening light. Ned Stark stood in the middle of it all, his sword heavy in his grip. He had fought Renly, he had defended King's Landing, but now he had to make the final decision. Jory Cassell rushed to his side, blood on his armor. "My lord, we have to pull back. The city cannot survive this much longer." Ned turned, looking at Renly, who had backed away from their duel. The younger Baratheon looked furious. His forces were suddenly trapped between the city walls and Stannis' advancing army. He had been so sure of his victory. Now it was slipping through his fingers. "Stannis is here," Ned called out, his voice carrying over the battlefield. "This fight is over, Renly. Surrender." Renly's face twisted in anger. "Never! I will not bow to Stannis, and I will not bow to you." Before Ned could respond, another horn sounded, a different one. A chilling golden banner emerged from the west. The Lannisters, Tywin Lannister, had arrived. A roar erupted as thousands of Lannister soldiers poured onto the battlefield. They had come in full force, their crimson banners waving as they descended. Upon the already chaotic battle, Ned felt his stomach drop. This wasn't just a battle for King's Landing anymore. This was a slaughter. Stannis' forces crashed into Renly's, while the Lannisters swept through both sides like wildfire. Jory grabbed Ned's arm. "We have to leave now." Ned's mind raced. If they retreated now, they could regroup, but there was no safe place left. The north was far away. The Riverlands were under siege. King's Landing was no longer his. And then he saw it. Jaime Lannister, cutting through the battlefield, his golden armor stained with blood. He was coming for him. Ned raised ice, ready for the fight. Jaime smirked. "You should have stayed in the north, Stark." Their swords met with a brutal clash. Sparks flew as steel met steel. Jaime was fast, but Ned was stronger. He parried, countered, and swung, each strike bringing him closer to victory. Then came the pain. A spear, cold, sharp, pierced his side. Ned gasped, stumbling forward. His vision blurred as he saw the Lannister soldier who had struck him from behind. Jaime stepped back, breathing hard. He hadn't been the one to land the final blow, but he saw the end coming. Ned fell to his knees, blood pooling beneath him. The battlefield raged around him, but his world was slowing. He thought of Winterfell, he thought of Catelyn, of Robb, of Bran and Rickon. He thought of Sansa and Arya, still somewhere in this cursed city. Jory was shouting his name. The world was fading. Above him the Iron Throne loomed untouched, waiting for its next victim. And as darkness claimed him, Ned Stark realized the bitter truth. In the Game of Thrones, honor had no place.